Hello.
Hello, that's a nice trick to play.
My computer was not. I started it up 5 minutes ago, and it wasn't having it. My computer was on a holiday, like me at the minute, and it's like, no, I don't want to play. And I saw you ring, and I answered yes, and then it was gone. So it was like, okay.
It was. I rang you more just to sort of, ring.
I do remember we're doing a TV show today, Bridgman. I'm like, I know.
I literally checked the date because I was like, it's not Wednesday, is it? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not 24 hours early because that is something I would do. And then I was like, checking our own quota to see if it was 6. I'm like, I'm not.
Actually, at the moment, it's like, what day is it again? I've no idea. I haven't a clue.
Was that I was wrong?
No, it just wasn't. I was like, oh, I should have turned this on. I was happy downstairs eating my tea, watching Gilmore Girls, thinking I've got plenty of time.
I've just started watching Gilmore Girls. I never watched the rerun. The
new one, the reboot,
the redo, the renew-do.
Yeah, I love it.
I absolutely adore the Gilmore Girls.
Yeah, it's so good. I've started watching it from series 1 again. I'm in the middle of series 2 at the minute. It's perfect, though, isn't it?
You know Melissa McCarthy plays Suki, the chef. Well, she's not in the redo new sequel. Sequel. And what is wrong with me using the word sequel?
Yeah. Well, it is more of a redo. It is more like a I don't know what they call it. Reboot.
There we go. Hey, we should review programs.
What we should do is stress you out massively. You're thinking, am I doing this on my own? And then review programs.
But yes, apparently they didn't ask Melissa McCarthy to do the reboot.
No.
Because in an interview, no, she's in the first one, but I don't think she's in the reboot. And when I saw an interview, when it first came out, it came up in I don't know, when you were on the internet and you're just reading stuff after stuff. I can't remember where it's from. I can't cite my sources. But they said, oh, why weren't you in the reboot? And she went, it's never asked.
Right. So my understanding of the Gilmore Girls is you've got the Gilmore Girls. I think they did about 7 series. Then they buggered off for like 10 years. I only got into them once it was on Netflix. And then they had A Year in the Life. But Melissa McCarthy, she is in The Year of the Life. She is in it. She's in it. She's in it for like 5 minutes at the end. They write in that her character has gone off to a shack somewhere, and you're like, this would never happen. Because her and
the young man,
Lorelai, were like that buddies, and like all the way through, she's like, I don't understand why Suki is up in a shack somewhere. It's like because she is like Ray said, she's Melissa McCarthy. They probably can't afford her. But she is in that. She is in it.
I didn't have the comments page up.
Yeah.
Hello, Ray. He was a superstar in the Lucy show because for some reason, when I do my stand-up with my fancy mic, it's fine. But when I use my fancy mic on StreamYard, it's scratchy as shit.
That's weird.
So, so luckily we've got our number 1 viewer who was able to go on the Lucy show and go, it's doing that thing again, Lucy.
Yeah. That's nice. Number 1 viewer or viewer?
We need to take a little second actually to just say hello and welcome to any possible new viewers of the Kitchen Sink that we have got because of our new partnership with Joke Pit Live. So we are streaming across multi-platforms.
Where are we? Because we're on Twitch and we're on YouTube. What other platforms are there?
Right, so we're on Tea Kitchen Sink on Twitch because that That's our house. That's our house. That's where we
That's
are.
our house. Yeah.
But we always go through the kitchen sink YouTube because we like to keep our shows posterity. Weirdly enough, as well, when I record back to go up on Spotify, clang, it's got a better audio quality when I play it back through YouTube.
Oh, awesome.
Again, technology that is beyond my capabilities. But we're also going through Joke Pit's Facebook, Joke Pit's YouTube, and Joke Pit's Periscope, because apparently people are still using it and we love them for it.
Yay. I never got into Periscope.
It came and it sort of went.
Yeah, I think it was around like 5 minutes before self-streaming happened, before like Facebook went, you can stream off us now, and and so it became a bit obsolete, I think.
Periscope definitely predated Insta TV. IGTV?
Yes.
IGTV? I just need to get a cable. 1 second.
Okay.
Right. So I was trying to do it daintily without being seen, but that didn't happen. So for new viewers of the kitchen sink, it's a lovely little show where you can come to our kitchen sink, have a cuppa, settle down with us. Yeah. And we do it where we do the first bit where we sort of have a gab, have a natter, catch up with each other. Then we bring in a wonderful guest where we discuss loosely comedy, but anything that takes our fancy, to be honest.
Last week I was like
the other one
with Hilary, we didn't ask her anything about her fantastic comedy career. She's been on BBC Sash, she's been on BBC TV with the Tourist Trap. Didn't ask her any of that. Right, I don't know if this is true on TV, but to me, Lucy's frozen.
There we go. Sorry, I was just trying to make sure that my modem didn't go out, and it went. Yes, but she's been on so many things, and where they're going. So where did you rent your ladder from?
Yeah. What colour's your house now? Well, it's nice. It's a little rest from wanging on about comedy all the time, I suppose. But who knows what you'll get when you go. But I like what I really like about doing Twitch TV as well is our lovely viewers, and everyone joins in the conversation. So that's the thing I like about it is we'll be discussing anything really, and everyone on the comments, and you can never tell what's happening. Like we have a regular Jamie Nemeth. It was his birthday yesterday, so happy birthday, Jamie. Who knows if he'll be here? He might be hungover. We've got Ray. Hi, Ray. Lovely to see you. But yeah, that's what I like about it anyway, is that we can all have a bit of a chat, get everyone involved, isn't it? And of course, we've got the Spotify listeners.
Yes, I know. So I don't know what Welcome to the Kitchen Sink in Nigerian is.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we should make an attempt to learn it.
Yeah. Maybe they're trying to, no, we're trying to learn English. That's why we're listening. We want to get on with the world. What was I going to say to you, Lucy? Have you looked at our viewership this week yet on the old podcast?
I have, and what's his name? Drew Taylor is doing well. I mean, I know we stand by our product. We absolutely stand by our product, and we love what we're doing. But I mean, because we don't sort of promote the podcast like aggressively. No, we haven't got any aggressive marketing going on with the podcast. It's sort of like people are listening to it. And it's not because we don't have faith in the product. We're just like, oh, hello.
Oh, it's nice. It's really nice.
So rubbish today.
Oh, no.
It's easy to bring up on my... Oh, right. So we've had 10 plays of Drew Taylor, and I only put it up a couple of days ago because I'm sure there's an easier way of doing it. But because I'm not very technical minded. I know how to do things, but they're very long-winded, complicated ways. So what I do is I live play the show into the Anchor software, which is, it's not, it takes time, but God, it's easy.
Yeah.
And I just
really
play it in and then it's up, and people get to enjoy it. And it's just, it's mind-blowing that it says how many people are watching it. For example, analytics, Sonette Stevens is overtaken Dee Maxwell in the most played.
Lovely.
Yeah. The Yanks are still in the strongest lead with 40% of listenership. The United Kingdom trailing behind with 32. And then it goes Canada, Australia, Ireland, Nigeria.
So no one from Wales. Wales are like,
I can now. There you go. There's my computer's woken up now, so I can do it. So Wales. All right. So of the UK listeners, we got 5% in Wales, and it claims we did have one in Cardiff, but now we're saying there's not enough data to say where in Wales. But at least we know that there are. There is. Use the right noun.
Yeah. For our TEFL listeners.
Oh,
hello,
look at that. It's been a good week for me because after months of contacting and emailing and begging, I have gotten onto the G&B comedy night, which there's sort of 2 or 3 big comedy names in London. Yeah. G&B is one of the big open mic scenes, and it's very exclusive. Well, it can't be that exclusive, they say, because they let me in.
Oh, shut up.
And I don't mean to blow my own trumpets there, but I bloody smashed it.
Oh, well, I knew you would. I don't even bother asking anymore because you're gonna, you're brilliant. You've got a lovely set. So yeah, brilliant, good
stuff. When we got asked recently for our quotes, the only quote really got is a nice set by Scott Capura, which thankfully he's gay, so that you know that it's not just referring to me tits.
Oh wow! For my camel toe.
You guys have such friendly little faces, and we're going to take that. We're going to focus on the little.
I've been on holiday this week, so not quite so little. But
how was it? Where did you go?
I went to Buxton.
You didn't go see your sister?
I did.
Where?
In Buxton. I didn't go down. I had a flying visit at next door to you. Flying visit.
Yeah.
Take that scowl off your face, woman. Right? No, I went up to Buxton.
I used to something in my teeth.
And went to visit my sister, her husband. We all went together. Best Western Hotel in Buxton. I'm not being paid to say this, unfortunately, but sorry, I'm getting distracted with the fantastic positive.
It's not true what they say about women. It's so not true what they say about women.
I can't hear what you're saying, Group My Camel Toe. Say it again.
Well, I said to my mum that you were on holiday, and she went, "Oh, where's she gone?" And I said, "Well, her sister lives just up the road." And I said, she won't have gone to see her sisters because she'd have told you she was in the area. And I said, I don't know. Fine.
No, we went to. I will come down. We need a special time, just the two of us, Lucy. Yeah, no, I haven't seen my sister since New Year. So yeah, we all as a family, apart from my mum and dad, we all went up to Buxton because it's like right in the middle of the UK. And I tell you what, it's so beautiful up there. We went for walks around Derbyshire. We went to the highest peak in Cheshire. I took amazing photos by accident because I literally just pointed the camera. I couldn't see what I was doing, and suddenly, looking back, I'm like, oh my god, some of these photos look amazing. I was chuffed with that. And it's just, it's like relaxing, eating. Say again?
Well, some of the best shots you can take photography-wise are just candid. They're just in the moment. Yes. Sometimes, I mean, I don't know if what your family like, but you can spend half an hour trying to get everyone lined up correctly, doing everything, and it's like, some hand looks like, someone's got a hand on the shoulder and it looks like they've got dead fingers or something. Whereas if you just take a quick snap, everyone just looks delightful.
Yeah, we had some really nice ones. But also, I'm very interested in nature at the moment. You know what I'm like with my gardening? And I'm reading a book called The Secret Life of Animals by this guy, Peter something or other. He's from middle of Central Europe, and he runs a forestry.
Peter Davidson.
Yeah. And he's like, animals are like this, but it's in a really nice, relaxing way. So, and my niece is amazing with nature. So I'm like, what's this tree? Yeah, it's an oak tree. So, okay, what's this tree? It's a birch. So I think I can recognize like a birch and an oak tree in nature. I don't see much in the way of wildlife, but apart from the ducks in the park. But it was lovely. I really enjoyed it. And I still feel like I'm on holiday, even though I'm back home and I should be doing some work, really.
Can I tell you one of the happy stories from the village up? My village update on the Lucy show, right? So a cat, a woman went into her daughter's bedroom in the morning and there was a cat asleep on the pillow next to the little girl. And that's fine, but it wasn't their cat. It snuck in through the bedroom window. So they had it for a couple of days and the cat had adopted this house. It was sort of like, just lying everywhere like, this is mine now. And the other cats were fine with it. So they got it scanned. It's from North Devon, like 30 miles away.
Mm-hmm. Oh my god!
So it must have got into a delivery. It must have got into a delivery van or something. But they were reunited.
Oh, that's so nice. But I don't know what's going on. I love a good cat. Well, I was going to ask you about my cat. Well, I don't know about this cat. My parents keep saying, look, she's clearly eating elsewhere. But she eats loads here, but she won't just come in the house. It's really bizarre. She cries outside, but she won't just come in. I have to pick her up and bring her in. And then she'll run through the living room and she will eat a load of food and then she goes again. And I'm just like, this is so bizarre. She used to come in loads when Bruno was alive. So I don't know what's going on with that. So if anyone's got any hints or tips, so they know what's happening, please.
We've got a village cat called Dave. Mm-hmm. There's always a Dave. We've got a village cat called Dave, and he comes to our house, and he'll have 2 pouches.
Right.
And then he'll come in the morning, have 2 pouches. He came when I was here, and I gave him 2 pouches. Next thing I know, I see Mum walking down the hallway with a bowl and some food, and I said, "Where are you going?" She went, "Oh, Dave's here." I'm like, "That's number 5."
I think I was a cat in my past life because I would so do that.
Yeah, it's a case of if they've trained you, she's trained you to carry her to her food. She needs to give you no attention. I mean, I'm surprised she doesn't give you a treat at it. But she's trained you where she turns up and she's like, "Meow, meow," and then you feed her loads, and she knows that you're pining for her, so she's like, "Oh, stop it, I know you love me." And then she's like, "Right, gotta go." Just go.
I'm like, no, that's not the deal. You're meant to be. But she's out all the time and she's out in the rain, so I'm like, she's not staying in anywhere, anyone's house. I'm a bit worried about her because I'm like, she's gonna get ill if she stays out in the rain all the time. But what can you do if she won't stay in the house? And she wasn't my cat originally anyway, so I can't think of her as my cat.
When we were in South Wales, we had a stray cat that kept coming round, and he'd only come if you sort of put biscuits down. So as kids, we called him Biscuit. And he looked like a bare knuckle fighter, but like in cat form, sort of like, all right, I'm one of these cats. And they were like, "Oh, Biscuit's here." He probably like, my name is Max. Don't call me that.
Yeah.
And we built him a little house, a little shelter, a little tiny house, and he'd sleep in that.
Oh my God.
Maybe you need to make him a little house.
Yeah, maybe I need to make her a little house in the garden. I have to say as well, I don't know if anyone watching, can you let us know? Me, it might be my computer, but you're all over you're like stopping and starting the pictures, and it's not just I don't know if anyone.
I'm going to experiment. I love spending money on IT.
Yeah.
And then I like that IT to fail me, because it makes me feel like I've really used my limited amount of money on really great tech. I'm going to take out my ISDL line and just use the Wi-Fi.
Okay. Yeah, so that Ray said Lucy keeps having minor freezes.
So let's hope.
Yeah, completely gone now. Completely.
Oh, little freezes like ice cubes.
Well, to me, they're big freezers, but I don't know. Maybe it's my computer. Like, you're completely frozen to me on the stage, on here now, and yeah, from what I can see on Twitch as well. So annoying. Never mind. It can hear you though, Lucy.
I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry. It's
Oh,
not
you
your
can
fault.
hear me. I can hear you.
I just can't see you. Your face
I just like it when,
in a lovely position.
Well, I mean, they say what is it? The opposite. Oh, that's right. The definition of insanity is do the same thing, do different things and expect the same thing and expect different results. With technology, I expect to do the same thing and get the same results, because it's ones and zeros.
Come on,
there shouldn't
guys.
be an off day. Is that any? Am I any better? Am I still frozen?
You're still frozen. As Ray has said, you're a total Elsa now.
Oh, let it go.
Let it go.
Oh well, if you can still hear me, at least our listeners on Spotify are going to have fun.
And your face isn't frozen and terrible. It doesn't look awful. That lady
which is always a dealer's roulette.
To retract. Bloody technology. It's a pile of pants. Oh yeah, maybe try switching it off and on.
And it's
again.
The first time.
Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, maybe try coming in through your phone. Maybe. Oh no, it has to go through Chrome. I don't know if you're talking, but I can't hear you either. Oh well. While Lucy's sorting herself out, the other thing I did this week, because I was missing the cat, I actually signed up to Match.com, and I think I was being a bit just decided yesterday, I think I was hungry and I should have gone and had some food and had to think about it, and instead I just went, you know what, I am just going to do a 6-month subscription, because it's £20 a month if you do it for 6 months, and I think it's something like stupid like £60 if you only have it for 1 month. But yeah, so I've been chatting to complete strangers on Match.com. So if anybody has any advice on how to do that, that would be amazing. It's so weird as well doing this without Lucy, because it's really nice having someone to chat to. And now all I can see is my stupid face. So are we even live? And yes, we are. Okay. So let's hope Lucy comes back. Is that Lucy? Yes, it's Lucy. Yay. I felt like I was flying a plane on my own then. It's horrible. I have no desire to do this on my own.
As a science question, did you still stay streaming whilst I buggered off?
Yes.
Right. It's because I've got the driving dashboard here. I thought when I buggered off that it was all going to go with me. Not that it's like delusions of grandeur, like I'm in charge of it all, but technically I should be.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it carried on. It just had me in my massive face, so that was odd. Yeah. And I talk about.
So did you go up Pennyvan?
No, I haven't. But I have seen a couple of pen and van pictures on Match.com.
Oh yes. Now, is Match.com the one you have to pay for?
Yes. And I was just saying, I was hungry yesterday when I was on it, and I should have come away and had a cup of tea, but instead I thought, oh, bugger it, let's just, I might as well. So I've got a 6-month subscription. I have chatted to a few people already, and it's only been 24 hours. But I tell you what, once you're on there, people are in, and they're like, I want to talk to you. And you're like, okay. It's a bit scary, but I have chatted to a couple of people. I'm going for coffee with someone next week. But he's looking for a phrase. But I'm convinced that there are secret phrases that I'm not aware of. And this is where I've always gone wrong with like I overthink it, and I'm just being myself, and I don't get when people are knobheads or whatever. I'm like, what happened there then? I don't get it. You know, when people are chatting to you for ages and then they disappear, or they don't want to meet up with you and all this stuff. But so far so good, but we'll see. So if anybody has got any hints and tips.
I know for a fact that you've got the birthday boy. Yeah, I gave him a big shout out in yesterday's birthday section on the Lucy show. Did I get you a raid, but they were off put by the word politics in the description. Have we got the word politics in our description, Sarah?
Yeah, because when we did the description, I think we had just talked politics for like quite an episode. But I can change it. We do talk politics.
We can. Well.
Do you want to raid someone who's scared of the word politics? Should I put feminism instead? Will they be less scared with that?
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to talk politics, but the feminists
are here. But thank you, Jamie. That's really kind of you. I haven't got a clue how to get a raid even.
Oh, well, Jamie's our official Twitch liaison.
And we're beautiful, by the way. We've been positively trolled, so just let you know.
Exactly. Well, they're not trolled, are they? They're fairies.
That's because we're beautiful.
That's because we're beautiful. What I wanted to add as well, I've been tweaking some of my set, and later I'm going to make you watch my set, because I think the first 3 minutes of my 5-minute set could work for my competition entry.
Yay! Yeah, you sound an image roasting, but we have got a Ray, so I think that's the best we're going to do tonight.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm quite confused and annoyed by it. To be fair, it's a bit of an ask. We would have been coming from Super Mario. Right. So with raids, your Twitch channel goes to your viewers, go to their channel, or their channel comes to you. And I went onto a Twitch Facebook group and I was like, hey, does anybody want to do a raid? Does anyone talk about comedy and nonsense? And they were like, no. They're like Grand Theft Auto, Dungeons and Dragons, Call of Duty, and I'm like, the worm turned.
Jeffries.
Is anyone in the Maritime?
We are going to talk about Mike Birbiglia later, my girlfriend's boyfriend. Did you watch it?
You say his name? It's Mike
Birbiglia.
There we go. That's good. I tried telling people on the Lucy show what I was reviewing, and it wasn't until Ray copied and pasted his name into the chat I was like, Mike Bibliotech.
It makes me happy about my showbiz name, which is my name, Sarah Bridgman. It's not very showbiz, but nice Mike Birbiglia. But we're going to be reviewing that later. And did anybody watch it? Are you going to be chatting with us later on, everyone in the chat?
Yes, please. Right. So it is 1 minute 2, which means that we are going to be bringing on the fabulous, the dangerous, the hilarious Steffan Alun. So I know the way technology is going right now, this will kick him out of the fucking studio.
Yay!
Oh, am I in? Hello, everyone.
Hiya, Steph.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Lovely to see you too. It's the first time I've laid eyes on you since the beginning of lockdown.
It is. When did we last see each other? I think it was March.
It was probably, oh God, yeah, that's a good question.
But maybe earlier, because we don't necessarily catch each other all that often. It's only when we get a weekend free at the same time.
Yes. So Steph and I will often go to the Glee. We go to the Glee Club together to watch the acts and do a bit of a chat. Amy Nemeth has said, "Hey, Steffan, Steph, I don't know if you can see us."
I can see you.
Jamie Nemeth is saying hi.
I see. Oh, hello! I can see Jamie Nemeth saying hi. Sorry, I got your name wrong as well, which is offensive because I
Right, Steffan, I'll introduce myself. I was frantically trying to do hand signals for Sarah to go, "Hi, Lucy, this is Steffan." I was like,
you know what? I have been conditioned by years of seeing television with sign language interpreters to just ignore hand signals.
And you're out of sync as well, to be fair to me. Steph, meet Lucy. Lucy, meet Steph.
Nice to meet you, Lucy. Thank you for having me.
Hello. I was looking you up on the internet, and I really chuckled with the Glee sort of introduction for you. Is like he does comedy, and he does entertainment, and he does TV, and he does radio, and he does it in Welsh. So you've probably never heard of him. I was like, all right, mate, that's a bit harsh.
Yeah. So I funny story behind that. I got in trouble for that. I wrote that myself because you know, it's a very DIY job when if you're a comedian, you know, bigger comedians have agents to do these things for them, but I'm quite happy to do my own paperwork. So I sort of just wrote my own thing. You write it in the third person, obviously, because it's a blurb about you. And actually, I never got any flack off it from the Glee or from anyone who saw that website. But I did a more local gig in Cardiff in a place called Tramshed, brilliant venue. And they wanted a blurb off me. So I just told them, just look me up on the Glee website, use that blurb, I'm sure it's fine. Except because a lot of Welsh speakers attend that show, they read the blurb and thought that Tramshed itself was being dismissive of the Welsh language, which obviously it was. Like, I'm a Welsh speaker, that's my first language. I'm allowed to make that joke at my own expense. But a lot of people got quite offended by
it. Need a blurb.
You had to do a press release. Don't bomb them, it was me, 'twas I.
Yeah, I woke up to messages from the promoter going, don't worry, Steph, I know you didn't mean it in a bad way, but she didn't explain what was happening. So I just had these quite scary texts going, Steph, I know a lot of people are having a go at you right now, but don't worry, I've got your back. I thought, oh my God, what's gone wrong?
Oh my word. Oh.
It's quite clever though, because it might have got you a bit more press than otherwise.
Well, maybe, who knows? It was a well-attended gig, actually. Yeah, maybe. Maybe that was good marketing.
We'll have to try something. We'll have to come up with some sort of argument, Lucy, or something. We'll get a bit more. I hate the marketing side of it. I can't. That's the thing when people don't know about comedians. When you're starting out, like you say, until you get an agent, which, you know, if you're a woman in comedy and you're over 40, good luck with that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, it's absolutely. You know, it's something I quite like about it, actually, is that with stand-up, you do, almost everyone has to start at the bottom. You don't get to go to an equivalent of drama school and learn all the skills and be handed a career. You have to kind of start at the bottom and work your way up, which I think is quite good, actually, because it means most comedians learn professionalism. They learn to do a little bit of PR. Most comedians will do a little bit of promoting. They'll put on some gigs just to try stuff out. I think it makes you a more well-rounded artist, I think.
Yeah. I think with everything now, I mean, no matter what you do, there's an element of marketing with social media. It is hard. Some people, they just get over it really easily. I just find it, and
It's all
it's like, it's just horrible. But
all of it's PR. You look at politics now. Politics is more about PR than it is about anything else. You know, the like, you know, when all the stuff happened with Dominic Cummings driving to that castle, so like you could just tell all of it was managing the appearance of it. It was like you were seeing elected members of parliament behaving like they were sort of amateur marketers. It's a really bizarre thing, and I think it's the internet. Everything is so fast now, and you can kind of get the word out so quickly. You've constantly got to be managing your own appearance, and I don't know. I don't like it. I think it's gone. I don't like that side of it.
Yeah,
but you know, it's part of the job. It's part of pretty much any job.
Yeah, even just like in my day job, I'm a tutor. And I realised during lockdown, I'm like, shit, I haven't got a Facebook page. I haven't got, you know, whereas one of my people that pay me, that give me work, she was all over Facebook and promoting it and everything. I'm like, oh, Jesus, I need to do that for my business as well, which I know sounds daft, but I hate it. I love marketing. I'm very interested in adverts and stuff, especially like the old adverts and how people put themselves across. I find that fascinating, but especially from a psychological point of view. But from a you got to do it for yourself point of view, I'm always being told, say, you could tell people that you're on stuff. I'm like, oh, I know. It's not as bad now, but that's why I'm brilliant. Lucy's brilliant at it. She's just so, you know, all over Facebook and all over Twitter, and the fact that, you know, Lucy doesn't mind me saying that she's fairly new. She's only been going a few months, but already like got a solid at least 5 to 10. I haven't seen a full 10 yet, but pretty solid, and out there straight away and telling everyone about it and going, you should put me on your show and all the rest of it. I still can't do that now. That's definitely more successful, and that's, you know, really good and stuff. I haven't got a question. I'm just waffling on.
Well, I think no one starts doing comedy from nothing. I think, you know, like it's sort of, you know, you don't start first day on the job and have to be shown around. You'll already have skills that you're bringing in from different walks of life, and I think it's a good strategy to use whatever skills you have. If you're someone who's naturally funny, great, cool, there we go, you've got a head start maybe on the performance, on the material. If you're from a job, I mean, I had an office job before stand-up, which is a brilliant thing to do because it teaches you the discipline of sitting down and doing your admin. It teaches you how to write a good email and how to talk to people you've never met before. So I think that was really helpful. It meant that I could do my own accounts and finances. I could find my own gigs. Like, I don't need an agent because I can do all that stuff. Well, that's all stuff I learned in a day job. If you've got any kind of background in PR or marketing, if that's a skill you have, that's an amazing thing to bring on board. What you're doing is learning all the things you haven't learned yet, because you've got to learn all the other little bits and pieces. So yeah, but I quite like that. I like that there isn't a sort of single straightforward journey with stand-up. It's kind of slapdash, and you kind of learn little bits and pieces here and there. And I don't know, I think especially when you're new, you just enjoy it, don't you? It's just exciting.
Oh yeah, like the energy on Lucy and lots of other people. I'm like, oh my god, I'm exhausted. Usually I never talk about you as if you're not here. We know you're here, Lucy, but honestly, it's just like, I feel like an old knackered person. But I remember, like, God, the first time I went up to Edinburgh just to watch, I was awake literally for 48 hours because I was so excited. You know, it's really exciting. But yeah, once you've been in it, I'm still excited. I still love comedy, but I need time away to kind of miss it now. But yeah, and you were self-employed as well, weren't you, Steph? With before you became a comedian.
Oh, what? No, not before.
Right. I thought you were with
my first. Yeah, it happened. I went freelance the year that I started doing stand up, but you know, about 6 months in. So I was doing stand up about 6 months at open mic amateur level.
Yeah.
And then I went freelance in my day job. So that was quite nice. It meant that I suddenly had a lot more free time because you can organize your time a little bit more. So I was, you know, doing my day job work on the train on the way to, you know, Cardiff or whatever to do an open mic. So I did kind of work so it's tricky, you know. You're having to learn all the discipline of sitting down, but really what you want to do is get excited about stand-up. So it was a sort of slightly strange time, but quite a rewarding one, I think.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is because the people that I see that are self-employed, obviously not everyone, but they're really on it with like asking for gigs and realizing that you've got to get yourself out there. You have to ask for gigs. People aren't going to just come to you. Will you be on my? They will if they know you, and it's like a door split or something. They've had you before. But
well, that's any other job, so I was a translator before, and actually because of lockdown meaning there are no gigs, I've gone back to, like, I'm still doing some writing and sketch and performance and stuff, but I've picked up some translation work. I've gone back to that. I always kept my qualifications alive because, well, thank goodness. I mean, actually, I kept my qualifications alive. I even sat an exam last year, to improve my standing as a translator, even though I wasn't really doing very much translation at all. Just in case, just because you hear stories of comedians getting ill or getting injured. I remember Bethany Black broke her leg and she wasn't able to work for 6 months, and that's terrifying, the idea that you can't earn any money. So I kept those things alive, and thank goodness, because then this pandemic happened and I didn't have to, I could just go back. But actually, I'm now having the struggle with translation that I used to have with stand-up, which is I haven't got anyone on my books. I haven't got clients who pay me to do it. So I'm having to go knocking on doors, metaphorically speaking, going, have you got any work for me? Because I think there's an idea that as a stand-up, you do that one gig that makes you, and suddenly people will ask you. And people do ask me to do gigs, but not enough to pay my bills. You need to, realistically, well, before, in a normal year, I would do 150 gigs a year. So that's, I'm not getting 150 offers a year, sitting around doing nothing. Like you have to push for it, and you have to let people know that you're there. It's marketing. It comes back to what you were saying about PR. I know I'm good. I've got a CV that proves that I can perform to a certain standard. I've got a bunch of big comedy clubs that book me regularly, but if people don't know that, people aren't obsessively following listings of comedy clubs to see if my name's on it. So I have to let them know. So I email people and go, look, these are the gigs I've done. Can I come and do one of your gigs?
Yeah,
I think that's a lot of what the job is.
Yeah. It's
I was going to say, I used to be a festival and event worker for 8 to 10 years, and that's self-employed. And there's no job listings. There is nothing. If you want to get a job on a crew at a festival, and there's a finite number of positions on that site, and they all went to school with each other, or they're so-and-so's daughter, so-and-so's girlfriend. They knew each other from that other festival, and it is clickiest, without a doubt, more than comedy. With comedy pales in the shadow of how clicky festivals and events are, and you have to keep in your back pocket your business card. We have business cards. With your name, email, and maybe like, because I did telehandler driving, I could do production. So I just put festival and events. There was too many jobs that I had to break it down to, and it is exhausting. You're standing there talking to somebody, and they say, I work for, I don't know, Fest, or Fest, something like that, and you've just got to go, well, if you've got any possibilities, any vacancies, and every conversation with anybody, if you can smell even the slightest opportunity of working for a crew, and if you're the last in, you're the first out whenever they make cuts and stuff. And in the end, I went into truck driving because I was exhausted and I used to call it self-whoring, because you can't have a nice conversation with anyone anymore. You can't be like, oh, we've had a nice day, did you enjoy yourself? And they go, oh, yeah, it's not as bad as my festival. What? You've got a festival? Oh, here's my details. Whereas at least with comedy, I don't have to just tell you I'm good at doing production or good at doing telehandler driving. I can give you a link to my video clip, or other comedians will vouch for me, or they'll see me on the bill. And even though there aren't, say, job listings, we know the forums where there are, spot going in Leicester, 10 spot, must have own car, or, Sarah will put me forward for a gig, or I'll put Sarah forward for a gig. And there is a bit more camaraderie, whereas with festivals, because it is literally a finite group of numbers, it's cutthroat. and people will undercut you. They'll find out what you're charging and email them the next week and charge 50 quid less. It's ridiculous.
So this is interesting. So this resonates a lot. I've got a couple of theories, because I think most of what you say is true, but I think there's one thing which I think is really notable about stand-up, which is that type of networking, people are very snobbish about it. And maybe you're right. Maybe in festivals it goes too far the other way and people are too pushy. But in stand-up, there's almost this kind of this suspicion of anyone who puts themselves forward in that way, which can be a good thing because it means you don't get that kind of cutthroat side of it. But actually, do you know what? Those people do exist. There are people keeping an eye on your gigs and trying to undercut you. That happens. It's just a lot less blatant and it's a lot harder to do. But also, I think those spaces are less finite. They become more finite the higher you climb the ladder. I think, like, you know, I mean, I've been at several levels of stand-up as I've sort of come through, and I think for me the one I found hardest was doing paid middles, weirdly. You know, it sounds like that one should be the least, you know, not that competitive, you know, 30 quid to do 15 minutes in the middle. But what you find is literally every open spot in the country wants that role because that's their first step into paid work. And that, so I found that more competitive than doing paid opening gigs, opening 20s for 100 quid. You know, gigs 3 times that paid 3 times as much. There was kind of less competition. There was a lot of competition, but there was less competition than for, you know, just 20, 30 quid in the middle. That was the stuff that was really quite, that was where I found that a couple of people could get quite nasty. People were very, very hungry for those opportunities and could be a bit.
I always found festival work was like a combination of Wayne's World 2 and show dance. Where the woman pushes her down a staircase. Showgirls, that's it.
Showgirls. I was trying to think there. Are you right, Steph?
I've been reading your comments, by the way, and really enjoying them. I think I want to address this one, which is that the massive increase in networking opportunities online offers a huge boon, and it's not going away and should be used to the max, which I think is true. I think there's a huge element of that. I think being able to cultivate a CV and a clip and whatever online can be really helpful. But I honestly think the other thing is, like, you can't underestimate the value of people seeing you face to face, having a chat with you, having a drink with you, because they remember it better. They remember you a lot better if you just, like, that's why professionalism is so important. Like, I think having mediocre talent, but being incredibly professional is much more important. It's that you would book that person first rather than someone incredibly talented who's not very pleasant off stage. Because what you remember is the social interaction.
RuPaul and Michelle Visage talk about this on What's the Tea all the time. Quit, Steffan.
I think as well, but the thing that I have struggled with in the past is, you know, there's these myths in stand-up as well. And you've got the gatekeepers who will be very much so stick by these myths, like, oh, there's no jobs in. I was told by someone, oh, there's no jobs in stand-up. All the jobs are taken. So don't bother. I was told that.
That's so weird. Okay.
So weird. Yeah. This is like 5 years ago, and Steph, you're well aware of this story because I was like fuming about it. But I paid 40 quid for one of these workshops, and where you go and you do this workshop is you actually do 5 minutes of your best material in front of a booker. And this guy that puts on these workshops and charges 40 quid per person, pirate high, sell it cheap. And he basically, this woman at the time said, yeah, it was all right, quite enjoyed it. And he went to town on me, basically going, you got another 9 years ahead of you. I don't know why, but I think it's because I was overtired because I'd had a gig in Blackpool the night before. I was a bit chatty, and a mutual friend said, oh, it's because you talked back to him and he didn't like it. And I'm like, oh, right. You know, you get this man, pricks. You know, you get this man who don't like being in front of people, and he's hungover because he was at a wedding the day before. He was wearing a dirty shirt, not very professional. And he basically, on stage in front of everyone, said, there's no jobs in comedy anyway, don't bother. So you can imagine the whole room were like, why are you charging us 40 quid per person if you don't think there's any jobs in comedy? Most of us are here to get ahead in comedy, you knob. You know, and it's not true. Since then, Kieran McLean has gone up and gone through. Ted Villiers gone up, gone through. You know, there've been so many people that have like gone stratospheric and got like Laura Lex, you know, and lots of people now that have been on TV since then, and that wasn't even my aim. My aim has always been, I've always wanted to be a good comedian and to get, you know, a professional, you know, and a professional gig, you know, gigs, which I do now and then, but like, you know, to be a pro comedian, that's all. I don't care about talent, I don't care about fame or any of that. I want to be good at the job and to get booked and paid for it. That was always my plan.
I think it's you know, the nature of stand-up comedy and the professionalism of it and the structures of it are have changed drastically. From, you know, it's still quite a young, like the type of stand-up we do, the kind of writer performer kind of sort of artisan side of joke telling, where you write your own stuff and there's kind of rules about this format of it. That's quite a young industry, you know. That starts in 1980, really, which is like that's a, you know, that's so
30 years ago.
40 years. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And for most of the 80s, it's a kind of underdog sport. It comes second to the kind of slick variety shows where people do kind of mother-in-law jokes and whatever, and magic and singing, you know, that kind of more traditional type of comedy. Like, so for the first 10 years, the people who do stand-up, there's not that many stand-ups in the country, and it's very messy. It's kind of mostly happening in pubs. There's a couple of dedicated,
and mostly London
clubs. Yeah,
because when I wanted to start doing comedy when I was 18, 19, but you know, in Swansea in Wales, there were very few comedy nights, and I thought I've got to move to London, which I couldn't do. I did try, but it didn't work out, and I came home. And I thought, oh well, I just thought it's not for me. I wish I'd had the guts, I've got to admit. And also, I always thought, well, you've got to live a life a bit before you've got something to talk about. But
you'd be surprised.
I think. Yeah, I don't know. I think about that sometimes, but I also think there's not much point. I mean, I do wonder if I'd started sooner or if I'd been a bit older. Because, you know, even in the 90s, there were 150 comedians in the 90s, basically. There was 100 in London, and then, you know, the others were sort of scattered across the UK. They all knew each other. There was 150. There were more than 150 kids in my school year in school, and that's how many comedians there were. They were all professional. There were no spots that didn't really exist. You were either a comedian who did gigs or you weren't. You know, there wasn't, because there wasn't that sort of ladder. And that changes 2004, 2005, because Live at the Apollo and Mock the Week start, and that creates a bit of a ladder. People can suddenly see, oh, okay, so we start there and you climb. But, you know, before that, you're either not a comedian or a circuit comedian, or you're Eddie Izzard or an equivalent famous person. Those are the three options. Suddenly, no, you can be an open micer, you can be a semi-pro, you can be a low-paid professional, you can be a top-end headliner, you can be a corporate act, you can be like, you know, because suddenly our acts were getting booked to do corporates, which wasn't really happening in the 80s as far as I know, but suddenly it became in vogue thanks to people like, you know, you think of people like Dara O'Brien and Jim Carr, and people who making our scene look like the mainstream all of a sudden. So, so I think what's happened now is that's just, as soon as you create an industry that goes, this is where it is, and look, there's a future for you, it attracts more people to it, and suddenly there's too many people doing it. Happened with plumbing. It was happening with plumbing now. It happened with lawyers when I was growing up. When I was growing up, there were loads of adverts on TV saying, have you been injured at work? Phone us, because too many people had become lawyers, and so suddenly they had to advertise directly to you, because maybe 10, 20 years before that, everyone knew But lawyers, oh, that's easy money. Like, there's not enough lawyers. Now it's plumbers, because we've been told there's not enough plumbers. Suddenly everyone's going into plumbing. Same thing's happening with stand-up. It used to be, oh yeah, you won't work a day in your life. You can get up late, you just drive to a place, talk for 20 minutes, money for old rope. Except it's not anymore, because there used to be 150 comedians and now there's about 8,000. And they're on every conceivable level, which means some people are still able to make a living, but not the same kind of living they would have done in the days, even when Jongleurs was around. You could make 50 grand a year doing just normal circuit gigs. You probably can't do that anymore unless you're doing corporate, unless you're doing media work as well. So, but as far as I'm concerned, like, that's okay, because there are loads of crafts where you don't necessarily make a living off it. If when you start writing poetry, anyone who's ever written poetry, no one's writing their first poem going, I'm going to be a famous, wealthy, full-time professional poet making all my money from the beautiful poems I write. There are full-time poets, but most of their money comes from all the stuff around it, doing classes or courses or giving talks. It's not just selling these volumes of poetry. I mean, I'm sure Michael Rosen makes a huge amount of money off that, but like, it's you find these other avenues, and I think that's what's going to happen with stand-up, where most stand-up comedians don't just make their money off the live circuit anymore. They write for stuff. They write for Mock the Week or for the news quiz. Or for Have I Got News for You? They write for other comedians, big touring comedians who can't afford to generate as much material anymore. It's kind of an open secret that they'll have their sets written by kind of less well-known stand-ups. And now, we've got like online streams and stuff. We've got like the BBC does lots of online stuff. That's another way into it. So you just find all these like little ways into it, and you decide where your heart is. So when I started, I didn't necessarily dream of making it a living. I have been able to make it my living, but who knows? This year has changed the circuit. Maybe most of the circuit doesn't come back. I don't, maybe I just have to make some of my money from translation from now on, and I think that's okay. So
Lucy crossing the fingers. What do you think of the online gigging, Steph? Have you done any online gigging?
I did one online gig, for a festival. I found it. I mean, no judgment on anyone who does that. I think it's not really stand-up, is it? Because you're not getting the feedback of it. Like, I'm not saying it's nothing.
We're losing you, Steph. We're losing you.
But I think it's streaming. It's a different type of comedy. It's a different genre. For me, stand-up comedy is when you've got it's part of what makes it stand-up rather than any other genre is the way you manipulate an audience and influence an audience. That you're not just telling jokes, you're conducting the mood a little bit. You're noticing if that part of the room's flagging, I'll make eye contact with them and bring them in a bit more. Or that joke went down badly, I'll pick another joke, or I'll address it, or like all those kinds of little tiny decisions you make to build a better atmosphere. You can't do that online because you have no idea who's watching. You're hoping that you're coming across well, but you have no way of knowing. So it's more like a monologue. It's more like a comedic monologue. So when I did mine, I felt more like I was delivering like an Alan Bennett piece of writing than my own material. I wasn't pausing for laughs because what's the point? I was delivering it as if I was acting a role rather than telling jokes, because I think that's the only way of doing it. So I think there's value in it for sure. Like, I mean, I have seen other people's comedy online, but it's a different genre. That's what I think about that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Especially with being a different genre, because it depends on the room. I think it's a new way of performing comedy. And I think it's a different skill to like in the room. Like, I think if you've got like comedians that have got weak jokes, or rely very much on chatting to an audience. I'm not saying this is you, Steph, by the way.
Yeah.
Because you're solid, lots of jokes, and very little chatting to the audience. But acts that do rely on that struggle massively, because of course you can't just chat to the audience. Some of the rooms you can a bit, and I've definitely seen the Joke in the Rough As with Scott Capuro. That's the first time he
no. What's his name? It wasn't Scott Capuro.
What was his name? Rod Gilbert's buddy, isn't it?
Yeah.
We will find out his name and drop it in. Get the YouTube up because he's still on there. Campanari or something. Barry
Castignola.
That's it. We got there in the end. Yay! Castignola. He was the first one that I saw. He did work the room, and it worked really well. And that's still up on the Rapaz YouTube. That's well worth looking at. But like for weeks, I was like, oh, just gonna say my comedy. And some rooms it would work really well, and some rooms definitely not. And it just depends because a lot, especially with the open mics, the only audience for a lot of them are the other comedians. And it just depends. Like in some rooms, they're chatting to each other because they're catching up, or they're working on their material. The same as in any open mic place, really.
Well, you're broadcasting. I think that that's what it is. It's got more in common with radio than with live comedy because you're just throwing it out into the open, and even if you get feedback, you might get comments which help know if people are engaged, but you never really know because you have no idea how many people are watching. The people who are watching, how many of them are commenting? It's going to be a small number. Maybe they're more likely to comment if they feel very positive or very negative. So you have no idea who's just in the middle. Are people a bit bored? Are people kind of engaged but not enough engaged to comment? Who knows? And I think the big difference is I went to see the film Knives Out 3 times in the cinema because it was brilliant.
Did you?
Yeah, I loved Knives Out. And the first time I saw it, I just thought it was the funniest film in the world. But then the second time I saw it, the audience was even more into it. They were gasping at the twists and stuff. And that was such a great thing to be part of. And I enjoyed it more, even though I'd already seen it, because there was kind of this atmosphere in the room. But then the third time I saw it, I went to see it with my mother and my stepfather, and it was a much quieter audience. They just weren't as vocal. They weren't laughing out loud at the jokes and things. So my mother and stepfather enjoyed it, but when they left, they said, "Oh, we thought it was a funny film, but it wasn't that funny." And I said, "No, it is. You need the audience to laugh with it to kind of get how funny it. It's so weird how contagious funny is. But because it's a film, it can't change what it was doing. It was exactly the same film 3 times in a row, exactly the same footage. The difference when you're a live performer, and especially in stand-up, more so than in acting, because if you're in a funny play, you can tweak it a little bit. But with a stand-up, you're allowed to break the fourth wall. You're allowed to kind of go, you didn't really go for that joke. Okay, I'm going to tell this joke. You can kind of let them into the process a little bit, and that makes it even easier to kind of bring people along with you and to make them feel part of the team. Like we're collaborating, we're trying to have a nice time together. And that's, a film can never do that. And that's why even when you're live, a process like this, or if you're streaming stand-up, it's more similar to Knives Out than it is to live stand-up because you don't see the feedback. And who knows what you're competing with? Who knows how people, maybe we are currently being watched by people who are doing the dishes at the same time. So they actually can't turn it off. They can't comment. They also can't click dislike on it. So you have no idea. Maybe it's being watched by someone watching it on a phone and they're also trying to keep the kids quiet. That it's because we are broadcasting into people's homes. Whereas when you're in a live room, you can see where they're all sitting around, they're all dressed up nicely. You can kind of, and if there's a distraction, all of you are distracted at once. If a siren goes off outside, if a police car drives past, all of you can hear that police car, so you as the performer can address it. Whereas we have no idea, the current viewers that we have now, we have no idea what's distracting them if they're being distracted by it's maybe it's pouring with rain where they are, and that's something that's kind of in the back of their minds, and you can't address it because we're not really in the same shared space. So that for me is the difference between a broadcast and stand-up, I think.
But if you look at if you look at like Barbara Nice when she does her pig in locking, she does a very similar format to Stuart Goldsmith's Infinite Sofa, where he'll all of a sudden say, right, everyone, you've got 10 seconds to find the biggest yellow item, or, come back, who's got the first piece of fruit. I remember I was on the first ever Infinite Sofa with them, and I'm running through the house. My parents are looking at me and I'm going, I need some fruit. And I'm running as part of the whole show. And, you've got Jason Mansford doing the Tuesday stand-up. You've got Scott Bennett continually keep going, and there's, I think it's here to stay. Very good at doing her emceeing with the COVID arms. That is a wondrous thing to see. But I do genuinely think it's here to stay. But I did notice when it first came along that the first people to turn their nose up at online comedy were those that couldn't do it. And they were the loudest naysayers of it. But slowly but surely, as there's no lifting of lockdown, and as there's no cure, people are coming around to it, and people do still want to laugh. That's the one thing. That's the one constant we can be certain on. That punters want to laugh, and I have to say, you know, when smoking had to be banned, people stopped going out as much. Now people can have a fag in their house whilst they watch. Clean toilets, cheap booze. If it's done well, I mean, I have enjoyed some online stand-up, and I have hurt from laughing, but it is few and far between. It has to, every star in alignment has to meet.
I mean, Jamie's comment, I think, is very true, right? So Jamie says that watching on a tablet in bed, you can just get a wry smile, even if you find it completely hilarious, because you laugh more in social situations. And I think that's true, but I also think it hits something even more important here, which is that I don't think people do go and see stand-up just because they want to laugh. I think they want the social element of it. If they wanted a laugh, they'd watch a sitcom. I honestly think that. I think they're doing it because it's most people who go to watch comedy. Obviously, there are some diehard comedy fans who love it so much they will go alone to watch comedy, but that's quite rare. Most people who go and watch comedy are either on a date, or they're with a group of friends, or it's a work do, or it's a family thing. Most people go in groups. Usually, it's a social thing. It's that I think that people crave. And I think what I found personally in lockdown is, although I watched a couple of solo comedy things, most of the stuff I've watched in my own media consumption and in terms of streams and stuff it's stuff like this. It's people talking to each other, because that's what I miss. I miss that feeling of people hanging out a little bit, because we can't go to the pubs. I think you want to hear people talking. I think we're humans, right? We're built to like groups, and we feel safe in groups.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I very much listening to a lot of podcasts and where people are chatting to each other, and I'm really glad that we put this out as a podcast for the same reason, to be honest with you. I know that, you know, there are friends of mine that have said, oh yeah, I haven't listened to the live show, but I definitely do listen to the podcast later, you know.
But I mean, the difference as well with Zoom gigs versus streamed gigs, it's not the full feeling, but there's a definite feeling of you're all in the same room with a Zoom gig, because you can also watch it on gallery and you can see other people's faces, and just in the same way that in a comedy gig some prick leaves their phone on, there's somebody that hasn't muted themselves. The kids are kids are barking. That's how much I know about fucking parents, isn't it? Kids are barking, better let them out. But there in the Zoom room, there is a fucking great feeling you can get off it. And I suppose, you know, live gigs are coming back slowly but surely. And it obviously, they've just recently cancelled a load, haven't they? They said they could, and then they couldn't. Then they could, then they couldn't. Then you could do it outside, then you couldn't. I think people are like, fuck it, I'll get the Zoom ticket. At least I know I'm not leaving the house.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of funny, like, because and you know, most of it comes down to the fact that the UK has been shamefully terrible at managing a response to this crisis. It's monstrous. But you know, on a personal note, because I'm in a high risk group, I can't gig until there's a vaccine. So there's a part of me just enjoying the Schadenfreude. Like, well, I'm not enjoying it. Obviously, friends of mine are being affected by cancelled gigs and stuff. But you know, I'm just seeing them kind of up and down, and like, I can't apply for these until I'm definitely safe.
I didn't know you were high risk, Steph.
Yeah, I've got very, very bad asthma. So I as soon as this crisis hit, I quarantined myself about a fortnight before lockdown started, because I can't afford to get it.
Yeah.
Alice James spoke about getting the text message as well, saying you're high risk, and just you're in. He couldn't even take his kids to the park, for a socially isolated walk and stuff. It was a case of just the hallway and the bedroom, the living room, the kitchen.
I'm not the worst at high risk because I'm not immunocompromised.
For people that are quite outgoing, that get in their car each week, going to different gigs and seeing different people and feeding off the energy of new people, new faces, new reactions, and all of a sudden you get a text comes through from the government that says, get in the house, and you can't come back out. I mean, I know there are terrible things, but you can't dismiss how bad that must feel.
Well, I think something I found is I expected to find it really hard. I think I'm very extroverted. I love meeting people. I love hanging out with different people all the time. I love how many friends I have thanks to stand-up. And I've missed those friends. It's a shame not to see them. But actually, I've had a lovely time just in the house by myself. Well, not by myself. I'm here with my wife, which is very fortunate. We have got on non-stop, which is very, I realize not everyone is so lucky. But actually, I've caught up on Norma Telly. I've read so many books. I'm reading a lot of comics at the minute. It's sort of nice. I thought I'd feel trapped because I've never spent so long in one city. The longest I spend in one city really every year is in the Edinburgh Festival. And even that's in Edinburgh, which doesn't really feel like a city, more like a sort of fairy tale, weird, sort of weird, fictional, it is, what I mean, like magic city, Hogwarts city or whatever.
Like a Midsummer Night's Dream, because we spend most of the time at night. Time doesn't exist there. Yeah. The times I've rung people at midnight thinking, oh, it's only about 9 o'clock, and they're like, fuck off, it's midnight, and I'm like, oh shit, I forgot, oh my god, such an amazing time. How are you feeling about, just to get off topic a little bit, are you missing Edinburgh this year though, Steph?
I am. Do you know what? I think my body thinks I'm in Edinburgh because it's August.
You can sense August.
I was walking around the other day, and it was like my brain was like, it got into that sort of slightly celebratory, slightly stressed mindset that you get into in that festival. I think because it's my first year.
People as they walk past the house.
Yeah, went down the spot, flying.
Because I think the last August that I didn't go to Edinburgh was, I think, 2013, maybe 2014. It's been a long time. And most of those have been, the full month, doing a solo show every day. It's been, I quite like it. I think it's because you do it because you have to, really. I mean, I don't think my career would be where it is if it wasn't for the Edinburgh Festival, because it makes you better. It also connects you to people that can give you work. So I think it was important for me to do it, but it's nice to have an excuse not to.
I've never done a full run because unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but I've had to have a day job, and but I did 2 weeks last year, which is the longest I've stayed away, and I absolutely loved it. And this year it was going to be right, as you know. Last few years, I think the first year I did it just as on a whim with 2 weeks to go. I was like, can I have a spot, please? I got one at BBH, and it was amazing. Did it for a week, and then the next year I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to write a proper show, and then I did it last minute again because I was like, well, I want to do it. And this year was going to be the first year that I did a proper show. I'm a bit gutted, but it just means I've got an extra year to write stuff. And as it stands, I'm meant to be doing the Women in Comedy Festival in October. So, I haven't had anything through to say that's been cancelled. So we shall see. You never know. So I'm going to start writing my old show again. But next week, I think I'll start looking at it again. But I've needed a bit of time off to kind of miss doing comedy. I'm just a bit... you need to live a bit. So it must be like songwriting, I guess, really, where you need to have a bit of time off, live a bit of life, and then come back and have something to say about it.
Yeah, this is it's the advice Josie Long is really famous for, is you need to live in the world you're writing about. I think it's so true. I think that's good as an artist. I think it's also essential for your mental health. Because if you put all your eggs in the basket of your career, what's left? I mean, I've got friends living in London, spending, you know, £1,000 a month on rent for a tiny box room in a horrible part of town, which, well, that was fine when they were kind of living, you know, embracing living this dream of, I'm a starving artist, I'm out, you know, they weren't spending much time in the flat anyway, because they were out meeting people, making connections, networking, doing all the stuff. Whereas, you know, for the last 4 months or whatever it is, 5 months, 4,000 years, whatever it's been, it's they have to live it. They have to live there. They have to spend £1,000 a month to live in a horrible room in a horrible city. Well, you know, obviously loads of people have headed back to their hometowns or back to their parents, you know, once they could, but you know, not everyone has the luxury of being able to do that. Whereas because I live in Swansea, where the costs of housing is very cheap, you know, I've actually got, you know, like a house that I really love living in. You know, I'm happy that I always put my relationship as a top priority, that I didn't take my eye off the ball because of my career. Gosh, you know, it's so fortunate, because you sort of, I count myself lucky for not being more obsessive than I am. I mean, I'm reasonably obsessive about my career, but it could definitely have been a lot worse.
I haven't been to Edinburgh, but because I've always been out of the country. And I was hoping to go to Edinburgh as just a pure, you know, what was it? I can't remember who it was. Maybe Louise Lee said to us, you know, you can only go to Edinburgh once as a first timer, you know. And from my view, you guys go up there and spend £1 million to share a bed with 8 people, where you get a venue that's like in Fife. It's the fringe. You have to fly here all day, and you come away with like £3,000 in debt. And if anything, because you guys haven't been able to make money off gigs at the beginning of this year, you didn't have any disposable income to waste on Edinburgh in the middle.
Well, actually, so I mean, yeah, like a lot.
On.
I think that the unspoken truth of Edinburgh is actually that there are 2 strands to it. Yeah, there are people. Most people will lose money on it because rent is so expensive, and it goes up in August, of course, that most people will just lose their money on that. But when you hear about people really losing money, usually what you're talking about is the big professionals who hire the most prestigious venues. You know, the ones with agents behind them who are, you know, they're the ones hoping to get on telly. And that's never been what I've used it for. I'm not particularly bothered about, I don't have ambitions particularly to do English language telly. I'm very happy with the media career that I have as it is, and I don't intend to leave Swansea. So if you're less ambitious, you can still get a lot out of Edinburgh. So the last 4 years in a row, I've made a profit in Edinburgh, quite a considerable one.
Ooh.
And part of that is because, I mean, I've got a friend in Edinburgh who he charges me rent, but not monstrous rent, so it's a little bit easier to make ends meet. He sort of charges a normal human rent rather than kind of the ludicrous sums that he could get away with if he wanted to. And also, I go up with the PBH Free Fringe, which is, you know, a very old organisation by now. Well, I say very old; it's been going about 21, 22 years. But that started. It's a very simple idea. It's just an organisation. It's not for profit. It goes into just random pubs in Edinburgh and goes, "Can we put a gig on in your venue?" And, you know, what you get out of it as a venue is people will come and spend money on the bar. What we get out of it is we can give our acts a space to perform for free. And then it's bucket collection. You know, there are disadvantages because you're not allowed to charge for tickets. But, you know, you just explain at the end that the way you're able to afford to be there is with the bucket collection, and people can be very, very generous. And I think more people have embraced that model as the years have gone by, and better acts are sort of taking advantage of that model also. What you won't get is you won't get any awards for it, because awards people generally don't come to free fringe shows, not unless you've got a very powerful agent who can kind of get them in for you. So if you care about awards, if you care about reviews, don't bother. But you don't actually need awards and reviews. People think you do, but you don't. The only point of awards and reviews can bring you to the attention of telly people. So if you're very ambitious, yes, you probably need those things. But if you don't want to be on telly, if you're happy to just have like a normal journeyman career as a stand-up, as long as you're happy to, if your dream is just to make a living from stand-up, or even just to make enough money that it's worth it, go free French because it's marketing. Awards and reviews seem handy because they help get people in, but there's no better way to get people in than just to explain what the show is in a way that is really clear and do your own flyering. The money I do spend every year, I get an excellent graphic designer to do my flyers, because I think you can't skimp on that. There's no point. If you don't have good flyers, you won't stand out. But again, that's because I've been going a few years. When you're there for the first time, just do what you like. Make your mistakes, just have fun. It's a laugh. It's a festival. But I've been going there a while now, so I kind of want to get people into my show. So I spend good money on the design, and then everything else I do by hand. Instead of getting reviews, I ask audiences to review my shows. And then once I've got a little collection of those reviews, I just staple them onto my flyers. I do that myself. I just print them off. I just sit there with a guillotine, like sort of cutting up the reviews, stapling them on. I hand them out myself. I've never hired a flyerer in my life. Sometimes friends do me a favor and help me flyer, but I very rarely ask them to do that either. I usually just stand outside for an hour myself in the cold and the rain, going, this is my show if you want to come and see it.
How many flyers do you get done? What is a number?
I get 10,000, and it's probably too many. I probably only need 5,000, but I'm always a bit like, I get a good deal on 10,000. So so I don't know. You never know. Like if your show suddenly takes off, you might need a lot more, or even if there's not enough people are coming, you might need more, because you might need to spend more time flyering. So it's a bit of a dark art how many you need. To be honest, how many flyers you get done depends on how good you are at flyering. If you're terrible at marketing your show when you flyer, you need more flyers.
Yeah.
Whereas my favorite story about this from last year, my friend Phil, brilliant comedian Phil Cooper, like me, he's a very kind of independent, kind of DIY type of comedian. His flyers were late arriving. So his first day, he had no flyers. So what he did was, he had the design for the flyer on his phone, but he knew he had all these thousands of flyers coming, but he didn't have any. So he went into a print shop and he said, can you just print me one flyer? Just one, right? And then he stood there, again, in the cold and the rain in Edinburgh, with one flyer. And anyone who came past, he said, hi, gang, I'm doing a show. It's my comedy show. This is a flyer for it, but you can't have it because it's the only flyer. And so people would stop and go, why have you only got one flyer? And he'd go, oh. And he'd just tell the story. And he's so naturally funny, Phil, that him telling the story of why he only has one flyer was so hilarious. He filled out that room. That room was rammed.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
Absolutely full. The following day, all his flyers arrived. He flyered normally with normal flyers. The room was only half full. Because that's the trick. It's not about the flyers. It's how you get the word out there. And if you think outside the box, there's so many good ways.
He's someone you want to spend an hour with, for sure. He's a real, he's a good raconteur. He's so lovely. You just get that vibe of, just talk to me for an hour, Phil.
Yeah.
And
I think for anyone doing the kind of comedy that I do, which I think of as like independent comedy, like it's me, when I put on a show, it really is me putting my own thing on. I mean, obviously PBH gives me the room, like they work incredibly hard for me to be able to put on my own show, but the content of that show, that's all me. I've written every word of that. No one's checked to make sure it's funny enough. It's been me by myself. I mean, obviously I've got friends who will give me notes, and I spent a year writing these shows. I do think they're very good, but it's kind of an independent thing. So if people like my show, they like my work, they like me, people buy into me as a person. I think that's quite nice, because I think people are tricked into that, thinking that's the relationship they have to more famous comedians. I think people go and watch Ricky Gervais and they think at the end, I feel like he was my mate because he just talked to me, but he's talking to 10,000 people at once. Whereas I think with a more kind of grassroots, organic career for kind of independent comedians, you can have a proper, the people who support my work are so incredibly important to me. And I do remember them. I remember who comes, there's faces that I see every year. Oh, you saw me last year. I do notice that stuff, and I don't point it out to them. You don't want to make someone feel awkward, but I'm very grateful for all the people who've, not just in Edinburgh, locally as well. There's, I think that's been something quite nice about. There's a really, really friendly comedy scene in South Wales that is just, it's just got so many brilliant people starting, and they are comedians in their own right. They perform their own stuff, but they also come and watch you when you do new stuff. That's really, really lovely, and it's great.
Yeah, yeah.
I just suddenly thought, did you see that film, Minority Report, with Tom Cruise, and where he walks around, it's all futuristic, and as you walk along, the way you see the billboards, they're all personalised adverts. Edinburgh is going to get to the point where you're walking along, someone sees you, and the phone just goes beep beep, and you fly at their phone electronically.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. It's become such an arms race, the marketing in Edinburgh, but the beauty of it is, you like, it doesn't matter. You can spend all the money in the world. You can buy the biggest billboard. You can make it entirely futuristic. You could have a 3D hologram animated tailor-made advert. You can never compete with authenticity. You can't compete with just a guy telling you, I'm putting on this show, do you want to come and see it? That moment, when I think of that, I think of people like, one of my favorite acts at the moment is Alice Fraser, the Australian comedian. And I just saw her doing 10 minutes in a very, very small room, like at the top of a very tall building. And it spoke to me. There was something about what she was saying that I thought, this is really exciting. It's really funny, but it's also, she's kind of putting her finger on stuff that it made me want to hear what else she had to say. So now that she's in massive rooms, filling it out, you just kind of look around and you go, this hasn't happened because she had an agent who pushed for it and because she got on telly. I mean, she has done stuff on telly. I'm sure she has got a good agent, but a lot of it is just, it's a very pure and honest type of work that she does, and it's just attracted an audience that loves what she does.
It's interesting. She always comes up with interesting, like, concepts and talks around that concept. Then it's really interesting. But we've got Seymour Butts has asked, is a comedian his own worst critic?
That's a good question.
Yeah, who wants to go first with that one? I've got my ideas.
I want to hear from Lucy first. You're new.
Go on then, Lucy. What do you think?
I'm terrible because if I've done the beat on one wrong joke and it's fluffed up my timing for the next line, I'll be like, oh, that's the whole, it's all ruined. And because of being new as well and not having that practice to cope with the bumps, so like the one gig where the woman was talking at the beginning of my show, and I messed the line up, which meant I messed up the second line because I couldn't just show must go on it. I couldn't just it flummoxed me and threw me, and then that's all I could remember for the rest of the gig because I haven't got that practice of picking myself up and dusting myself off. Sometimes I think comedians could be more of their own critics, especially the ones that tell the offensive jokes and they're like, legend. Like, no.
That was going to be my answer. Is it depends on the comedian. Because there's comedians out there and they look like they die in their arse and they'll come off going, stormed it, and I'm like, do you really think that, or are you that delusional? Because you're going to have a little bit of delusionality to get up there in the first place, but I think you should still at least be aware that that could have gone better. There's only so much you can control, but there's quite a lot you can control. But I think I mean, it's hard to get true criticism anyway of other people, because there's either people trying to kiss your ass, because running rough as some people used to think that it's literally first come first served, anyone can have a go, but people would still think that they needed to kiss my ass to get a spot. People aren't, I think, unless you have people that, there are people I'll go to and I'll say, right, can you tell me what you really think? And I think that's valuable, but you should really be able to critique yourself.
This is a really good point, Sarah. I hadn't really thought of this. Like, the flip side of it is, who's a comedian's best critic? And because it is hard to, it's hard because I think you need three things from someone to give good criticism, and one of them is you need them to be correct. You need someone who's got a good professional instinct for what is good, what you're doing well and what you're not, because criticism from someone who doesn't know what they're talking about isn't very useful. Secondly, you need them to be able to be honest, and that means in both directions. They have to be honest about the good stuff and the bad stuff. They can't be sucking up to you, but they also can't be just putting you down either. And I think the third thing you need is this is from you. You need to be able to trust them. So it has to be someone probably who's invested in your success. It has to be, you have to trust that they find you funny. Because sometimes I've had criticisms of people who've said, you should do this. And I think, yeah, but you don't like what I do. Not really. I mean, it's not, you don't hate it, but like my genre isn't for you. So, you know, sometimes people might tell me to, oh, you should go down that route. And yeah, that would work for you, but it's not really what I do. But I have my people who are like that. And I've got a handful of people who I'll always want to see my comedy when I'm writing something new, because I know that I'll get a good mix. I'll get a response that is professionally astute, that is honest, but that's also compassionate. In fact, I think I'm going to answer the question, who's a comedian's worst critic? It's not you. It's nearly you. Like a comedian's, you're nearly your own worst critic. But the person who's a slightly worse critic than you is the person who thinks you want to hear their opinion after you've had a very tough gig.
Oh yes,
yeah,
they're the worst critics.
And it's the person who comes up to you and goes, right, I'll tell you why it went wrong. And you sort of go, look, I know it went wrong. Like, I heard the lack of laughter also. Like, it's fine.
And aren't they always there within seconds? And you're like, just give me a minute. I just need to process. Just hang on there.
Because you know that Millikan rule.
You're fucking critical.
Sarah Millikan rule, is it 10 or 11 a.m.? You can think about a good gig or a bad gig until 10 a.m. the next day, and then you must either stop, you know, thinking you're great, or stop thinking.
Yeah.
But I think then there needs to be a sub rule of people, when you've had a bad gig, or you've not even a bad gig, there are always certain things that you think, I could have done that better. But those people that think that you want their opinion, fuck me, they're like Mo Farah. They are up there within, oh, it's this, then it's this. And it's sort of like, is there not a rule where they must not approach you for at least 2 hours?
Yeah. Well, but I mean, part of it is getting the right type of thick skin, because what you have to understand about those people is they're not giving you the advice because they think you need it. They don't actually care what you think you need. They are talking to you because they want to make a good impression on you, weirdly. Even if you've just tanked a gig, even if you've just had a terrible gig where no one laughed, they want to impress you. Because you were just on stage. And so if you've had a good gig, when people give you advice after a good gig, it's because they want you as a comedian to recognize they're brilliant as well. Oh, I'm brilliant. I noticed a thing you could have done. You could have said this, or you could have done that. You know, it's because most people want to be listened to. I think most people want to go on chat shows. I think that's why chat shows exist, is, you know, people want to go and share their opinions. And so if you're sitting there watching, like, I mean, everyone does it. Everyone's parents do this, where they watch TV. Like, I remember my dad would watch TV and he'd criticize television. And, you know, my dad never worked in television. Like, he had no idea how it got made, but he had strong opinions on when it went wrong. Well, that's it. It's that people have these strong opinions and they want to tell someone. So when you can go up to the person because they seem approachable and say, oh, you shouldn't have done that stuff on that subject because it went down like a bucket of lead, didn't it? That wasn't, like, they're not. They know they're not helping. That isn't what they want. They just want you to think that they are brilliant. They want you to think they're clever. They want to be liked. Everyone just wants to be liked.
Yeah. What about the comedians? Like, you know, when you know you've definitely had an amazing gig. I had this one gig last year where I absolutely stormed it. I had a great time. And the other 2 acts on the bill, who I knew very well because they're local acts, didn't really speak to me. I'm like, yeah, smashed it. And I would have thought they would have gone, oh yeah, well done, Bridge, that was great. But they were like looking at me like daggers. And I was like,
interesting.
I'm sure I had a good gig. You know, there have been times where I'm like, I smashed it, and then I listen back and I go, oh no, it was very quiet. Why did I think that was amazing? You know? Well, this one, yeah. Anyway,
I think it's helpful to surround yourself with people who will celebrate your successes with you. And sometimes that isn't the other acts on the bill. It depends on where it is. I think the national circuit is lovely like that. I think if I do a club gig, like a circuit gig that goes well, it's notoriously friendly and supportive. Like, and I think because I'm like, you know, I mean, in my 30s, I'm not like a young kid, but I'm relatively young by the standards of a club comic. So like, even now, I quite like that there's a sort of almost parental relationship that some of the, you know, some of the people who've been doing it since the 80s have, where, you know, they'll be a bit proud of me because I'm the young kid coming through. Oh, well done, you entertained those people, well done. And like, that's really nice. You go for a drink with them afterwards. I think at more local level, it's a little bit, I think there's more insecurity. You know, if you're doing a gig where everyone's getting paid hundreds of pounds, there's no insecurity. We all know, we're all, you know, even if you're the person who's on in the middle getting a bit less than everyone else, you're still getting paid. You're still making a profit. You're still, you know, you're still living the dream. So no one feels insecure. So you know, the act in the middle will praise the headliner. The headliner will praise the act in the middle. For the most part, there's some egos, but mostly not, actually. Mostly it's really... people just, I think they are at a point where they're comfortable with themselves, so they just love it. I think sometimes you can do a local gig where people just aren't sure where they stand. Then the reason they probably didn't compliment it was because they weren't thinking about it. They were thinking about their own gigs.
Yes.
Whether that went well or not, you know, they were like, where's my compliment? Because that's what most, you know, because people want that validation.
Yeah.
And I think as well, I had a t-shirt over my head going, Bridgman Bulls, woo!
well, the sooner you can do that, the better. I mean, I learned very early, like if someone's had a good gig, just tell them that it was great, because no one ever gets bored of hearing that, no matter how famous they are, no matter how new they are. If someone's had a great gig, just tell them, just like tell them a joke you enjoyed.
Yeah. Again, what kind of joke?
Tell them a joke you enjoyed. You know, you'll always find something. You'll always find something positive in whatever someone's done, and also like it helps you learn from it as well. I think if I'm watching very new acts, even if it's someone doing their first ever gig, you can always learn something.
Absolutely. And I think people forget as well that from an audience point of view, they're not seeing one act, they're seeing a show. So if the better everyone does, the better the show, the better the audience has it. You know, it's not all about you as an individual. Yes. It's about the whole show. Like a lot of the nights that I've been on with Lucy will make a point of, in the chat, be like, oh, well done, stormed it, excellent. You know, we can't big each other up, and it just feels so much nicer as a gig. And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm good to go, I'm raring to go. Rather than those nights where people are like, you know, we've all done gigs where like the promoter will go, all right, so if it's going well, you can do 8 minutes, but if it's not going very well, get off, do 5. And you're like, I can't decide that in the moment, thank you. You know, and it just makes you feel under pressure then, which no one does well in that environment.
But it's a weird note to give, because timing is a real dark art with stand-up. It takes it takes a long time before you're able to really fine-tune timings. I mean, I think, you know, once you're at a point where you're like, do 20, but if it's going well, feel free to do an extra 5. Like, that's okay, because you kind of, because you know once you're 15 minutes in if you're enjoying it enough to want to stay on or not.
Awful. Tuesday night, I was doing the timings for the Dropped, co-hosting. And this guy had done his 5, but he's like, he'd gone past the 4-minute flash and the message, and he got to 5, and then he went, oh, have I got time for one more joke? Have I hit my time? And I said, if it's funny. And he went, no, it's fine. Thanks very much. Hand it back to the MC.
Oh dear. It's so strange though, isn't it? But again, it's one of those things. There's no... When you do like a new act, a new material night, sometimes you get lucky, obviously, that, you know, there are brilliant new material nights run by very experienced comics who've been going a long time, but a lot of them are just run by someone who's been going 6 months, who just wanted an opportunity to learn how to MC or to, you know, have their friends on and stuff. It's tricky because you're trying to learn from people who are actually quite new themselves, so you're all trying to kind of get into it together, so you don't really know what the etiquette is about how much timing is allowed. And so it's a funny thing. Depends on how many acts are on, you know. Like when I was new, when I started, an open mic night was 6 acts doing 10 minutes. But there are so many more comedians now. An open mic night is like 15 acts doing 5 minutes. So if you overrun in that slot, it matters a lot more. If you could overrun.
It's not just your own time you're wasting.
It's half the world as well.
Simon Butts has asked, what's been the wildest thing that's happened backstage before or after a gig?
To be honest, most of the gigs that I've been at, the wildest thing is it's generally people that you know having a bit of a laugh and a bit of a natter or worrying about your set. And the really pro gigs, like when I've been at the Glee or in Cirencester, everyone's so professional, and especially the proper pros, they've done their set a billion times. They're like, they can get on stage with a minute to go and they just get on the stage, they do it, they storm it, they come off there, thank you very much, goodbye. They're so professional. It's not like the ones I've been to, it's not like rock and roll. I Green Light Festival a few years ago, really like that. No. Yeah.
For me, the wildest thing is when one of the younger male comedians has the confidence to come up to a woman at 39 in a sequin catsuit and say hello, because I can see the fear in their eyes.
That is wild.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think comedians, I'm sure I'll think of exceptions, but all my favourite memories of backstage, they're not wild stories, they're just, nice. Because we're storytellers, I suppose. We're not living a wild life, we're telling stories, our favourite stories of a wild time. So all my favourite memories are people telling me, God, the stories people tell, that whether they're stories of sex, drugs and rock and roll, or whether it's a story about seeing a ghost in a place or whatever, because you get people from all walks of life. Like, you just get so many bizarre stories. But actual events, I did once do a gig where while the headliner was on, the audience started fighting among itself.
Nice.
And so
the
gig was cancelled. Like, the headliners came off during his set because the audience wasn't listening because they started fighting. So we all went upstairs where the green room was, and we had to hide because most of the audience went home, but the ones who wanted the fight were sticking around and they wanted to try it on with the comedians. So we had to hide upstairs until everyone had gone. Everyone was threatening to fight us, and we were all, weedy comedians.
Didn't come here to fight, came here to tell jokes and piss about. Which part?
That's so bizarre.
You'd need some strong punchlines.
Hey.
Oh, I'm not happy.
And Lucy's frozen in a perfect position.
We're going to have this up. I'm so sorry, Steph. You and the three of us could talk for another 6 hours. We're going to have you back on, love.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, thanks, Steph. Thanks so much. Mwah. Lovely to see your face.
Thank you very
Can
much.
I ask, is there anything to plug? Can't seem to find you, if you've got a Facebook comedy page or anything. Is there anywhere?
I have a on Facebook. I've got an official group. If you want to look up the Steffan Alun official group. Otherwise, follow me on Twitter. When I do stuff, I put it up there. I've been streaming recently, although I haven't done that in a while. But I'll probably start that up again soon. So that's STALUN. That's my Twitter handle. I realise it looks like Stalin. That is not on purpose.
It sounds like Saint Alun.
Yeah, I prefer Saint Alun. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But follow Steph for comedy and communism.
Not guaranteed.
He's not a cult leader. You may look like it, but he's not. We promise. Oh, it's been lovely to chat with you, Steph. Thanks for being so generous with your time. Yeah. Speak to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, hello.
It's my favourite part where you go, oh, isn't he lovely? He's left,
You
and he's
said
down.
he was nice, but you didn't say he was lovely.
And he can talk at times.
Yeah. I know, exactly. I was like, I'm just copying and pasting to put in the chat so that everyone can see it. It's the Steffan Alun official group on Facebook.
Awesome.
So that's all posted that way. So that is that. Ta-da! Steffan Alun official group. And, right, okay.
Alun on Twitter.
Yeah, Sarah, I don't know if you're ready for this, all right, but you're about to have your mind blown, all right?
Go on, I don't know if I'm ready. I've got a headache. Go on.
So we've got quarter of an hour left, but I just wanted to say we're going to be reviewing this.
3 weeks into my relationship with Jenny, I built up the courage to ask her to go on a trip to Bermuda. I wanted to show her how much more money I could put on my credit card. And since I didn't have a lot left, we went to Bermuda because it was the off season. You can get these great deals online because, as it turns out, when it's winter in New York, it is also winter in Bermuda. And
I'm so happy. I'm nearly crying. I'm so happy. We're so professional. You're so professional. Oh, well done. Yes, you deserve that smug face, lady. Well done. Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, we got to look good, didn't we? It's our first week with Joke Pit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. We've done so well. We're both here. We've only had slight technical difficulties. We're getting there. Brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. So you start, because I mean I've got opinions on it, but I'd love to know yours, because he seems to come across as loving. You seem to love him a lot more, and I'd love to when somebody really loves something, I'd love to watch it through your eyes. I enjoyed it the whole time. I thought, I bet she's absolutely crying with laughter right now, kind of thing. Right. So give me your opinion.
Okay, so I first came to Mike Birbiglia through listening, because I've got Google on my phone. I pay for Google Play, and I'm always looking for comedians on there. They have a lot of American comedians rather than British comedians. And I saw this guy, thought, I'll give it a go. He basically, one of his shows, he'd been like trolling people on Twitter to listen to it, and that was Sleepwalk with Me, which was his first special. So after seeing 6 months of this, I saw him, my girlfriend's boyfriend, on the Google Play, and I listened to it. I got to say, my first listen, I was like, yeah, this is all right. This is quite enjoyable. And I listened to it again, and some of his other stuff. The reason why I love Mike Birbiglia is that storytelling, when you first listen to it, you think, oh, that's an interesting story. And then when you listen to it again, you're like, oh my God, he's packed so many jokes in what you think is just, and opinions and facts, in what you think is just a story. So with my girlfriend's boyfriend, you think it's just a story about how his girlfriend had a boyfriend, his early girlfriend had a boyfriend, and then later on his new girlfriend also kind of had a boyfriend, how he dealt with it. It's about so much more. He just fits so much into that hour, into that special. So I'm not sitting there pissing myself. I'm sitting there going, oh my God, what? I just think he's amazing as a comedian. And then watching it on Netflix, because I watched it on Netflix this morning. I think it's only the second time I visually watched it. I've listened to that show like 1 billion times.
Oh.
And yeah, and it's really quite visual. Like, he rolls around on the floor. I really like that, he's like, he plays this sort of slightly dumb character, and he shows it in his face, and he's like, oh my God. And there's a reaction, one of the audience, when they laugh at what is about to happen to him, and he's like, I know, I'm also in the future. So I love his style of comedy much more than any one particular show, but we had to do a show, and that one I knew was on Netflix, and it's probably one of my favorite ones. But yeah, I love him as an act more for the kind of act that he is, really. So yeah, so I know that doesn't specifically review My Girlfriend's Boyfriend. For me, for that show, he just gets so much in there. I like his use of, like I say, his visual, his face, the way he uses his voice at times, physical comedy at times, as well as it's it seems quite a straightforward, kind of boring story. It's basically how I met my wife story. But at no point does he say, so it's not straightforward with it. He's not saying, right, so we're all married. I hated being, I never thought I'd get married. It's not a straightforward thing. It's really conversational. So I love it. I love it for all those reasons, and I could waffle on for hours about it. So I'm prepared, because when I was watching it this morning, I'm like, oh God, I hope Lucy's not sitting there thinking this and going,
you were
I've got to
watching
get
wondering what I was thinking, and I was watching wondering what you were thinking. We are really the sweetest couple on the internet. So.
Yeah.
I liked the relaxedness. You know, I mean, if you compare it to Black Mitzvah, where it was like bang,
so
bang,
yeah,
you know, it
comes on literally on the shoulders of people.
Whereas he was kind of like, hi, I'm a comedian, I'm about to do some comedy. And what caught my ear, caught my mind. I don't know what the right phrase is, but a lot of Americans don't seem to cope with the self-deprecation that British people can do.
Yes.
And
it's not part of their culture, is it?
It's not part of their culture. And when they do, it stands out as American self-deprecation. It still isn't British self-deprecation. And he can do it, like, even down to the fact of, you know, this is my first choice of outfit. You know, yes. Option B, I'd be naked. For those who think this outfit is because my other was in the wash, no. And then him rolling around on the stage. I love slapstick. I noticed over the years, sitting with somebody I used to know, used to live with them and everything, and there could be a really witty joke, and then somebody would do something slapstick, and I would piss myself laughing. As much as I love like really intelligent play on words and stuff, just trip over, I'll cry.
Yeah. Yeah. But I also love, like, the use of his voice. So he talks about the scrambler. He's like, a scrambler, and he's like imagining the meeting with all the executives and how he plays that out as well. He rinses as much as he possibly can out of a thing, out of a story.
He's not Tiffany Haddish. He's not Jimmy Carr. You know, he is not this, he's not this, but he neither tries to be it. He's definitely more in your Hannah Gadsby kind of, I'm just going to do some talking.
Yeah.
Here's my set. And I'm enjoying sort of us choosing such wild and strange comedians, because there's no, they're similar to it. But I mean, right. We'll go back to Jim Jeffries. All right. I love Jim Jeffries' Gun Control, you know, and then we liked his, what the fuck was it called? Intolerance. We liked Intolerance.
Wasn't good enough, was it?
But you know, you are not going to get that Mike Birbiglia. I have to read the screen. Mike Birbiglia going, the problem with Michelin star restaurants is he's down to earth. You can see he's professional. He's making money out of his job, but there's no point complaining about how long the valet comes to bring your Maserati to you. He, you know, even though he comes across as this guy packs a house, this guy is making money. You know, you can tell with Jimmy Carr, the cut of his suit is proportional to the money he's making. This guy, he is a big name, and you can tell he's a big name, and he's polished, he's rehearsed, and he's dedicated to his set. But it's not like, bah!
Yeah.
No, and even like you know, you think, okay, he's talking about happy marriages, he's talking about, you know, meeting his missus and everything, and then he goes, "We're that couple that if you're not sure about getting married, we'll test you. Are you sure?" His misdirects aren't like, you know, Jimmy Carr basically making a pedo joke where you're like, where the fuck did that come from? His misdirects are, did he just say he talks people out of marriage even though he's in a happy marriage? It's a little warm duvet of a comedy set. I like him. There's craft, there's thought, there's practice, but it isn't going to punch you in the face.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah. I mean, you've got to be, for me, I like him best as well when I'm I've got a long journey to go, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna sit and listen to a bit of Mike Birbiglia. And also, you know, what was I going to say? Mike Birbiglia came about. He used to have, he's got a special on Google. It's called something like My Secret Public Diary. And he used to write like a blog. And so this blog, he'd email people his blog, his weekly blog, and so that's where that came from. So all his best stuff, this stuff on Google Play called My Secret Public Journal. That's it, My Secret Public Journal, and that I reckon is probably his comedy set, so his club set. So I would really recommend going back. And I love this, you know, when you find a comedian and you're like, oh, I want to. Like with Tiffany Haddish, she's like, oh, great, I like this comedian. Right, I want to know all the stuff, and then I'll go on YouTube and I'll go, right, what were they like 6 years ago? What were they like 10 years ago when they were just doing five? So they were on Comedy Central. What was their five like? You know, or they're on Just for Laughs. What was their five like? I love all that. He's got a lot of material out there, and yes, Seymour Butts. He's got to be one of the best storytellers type comedians out there. He's just fucking brilliant. I love it for that. So yeah, so even if you like, I would rather be punched in the face with my punchline. If you love comedy, he's worth listening to and watching just for the craft. If he's not your cup of tea,
he's probably not watching. But my friend Jason, I've watched a few of his stand-ups from when he was actually a live person on a stage where there were people. Do you remember them? And
just about.
There's a very similar air with the build and the holding of the mic and the stance and the tone. I think there is if that is not a bad, that's not a bad persona or style to emulate.
Yeah, I love it. And there's lots of storyteller comedians out there. Like locally, Matt Price, he's an amazing storyteller comedian. So good, from Cornwall. He's great. So if you can check him out, he's amazing. There's a woman, Sarah something. Steph Alun would have known. Sarah.
He's left. He's gone back to the person he lives with. Oh, that's right, his wife.
Oh yeah, Helena Alun. I'll have to come back and tell you guys next week, or we'll put it on the Facebook group. There's loads out there, and once you realise, there's lots of different styles and genres of comedians, and I do love a storyteller. I do, and I think new acts will go, oh well, I'm more of a storyteller really when they don't get laughs, and it's because Mike Birbiglia proves you can't just have a story. You've got to have. He has like one-liners all the way through. When you go back and go, oh my god, yeah, there was a one-liner, but the way he's like delivering it isn't like bam, bam, bam. It's like you're telling this massive story. It's so crafted. It's so well done. I don't know how he does it either, so I love it. Absolutely great. I'm glad you didn't hate it. I'm glad you. I don't know if enjoy is the right word, but
when we had our difficult week a couple of weeks ago, I wasn't in the right frame to watch any comedy, but I was like, I got it because the thing's coming up, and I watched the other one. I watched the one that's called The New One. So I watched the wrong one in the wrong time frame. I got about 5 minutes in, and I was like, Lucy, press pause, otherwise you're going to tarnish this act.
Yeah, that one, the new one, I've got to say, it's more of a play. It's more of a one-act play. And it's not one of my favourites, I've got to say.
The girlfriend's boyfriend was a nice, gentle storyteller, like fast jokes, but still very comfortable, like sort of smooth velvet kind of thing. Whereas the new one, if you didn't have any knowledge of him whatsoever, it's not the best one. I mean, with Hannah Gadsby, we went in with Douglas, whereas maybe we should have gone in with Nanette, and I still haven't had a chance to watch Nanette, but maybe I don't know. I really like Douglas.
From the two, I thought there were more jokes in Douglas. I enjoyed Douglas a lot more. I watched Nanette because literally the world and his wife were going, she's reinvented comedy. It's a whole new genre. And I watched, and I was one of the ones, maybe I was in a bad mood, but I was one of the ones going, this isn't comedy. You know, the first half is. The second half is just her telling us about how she's been sexually assaulted many times. It's really hard to watch a lot of it. But I will go back and watch it again because I've had so many people tell me, okay, Sarah, but you're wrong. You know, so, but I loved Douglas, and I really enjoyed watching it more than once. So who knows? Let's see what people think. So what are we going to do next week? What's our... Because it's your turn. What are we doing?
I have an option. I have an option for a special, or I have an option for a show.
Okay.
So
tell me what the two are.
I started watching this without you because the other night I just needed to. Okay, so TV is Golden Girls. Or the special is an audience with Victoria Wood.
Oh, well, we're going to do both of them at some point. They're both very, very good. I say let's do the Golden Girls then, because we've just done a special. And then the next time
we'll talk more offline, but all the Golden Girls are on YouTube. But for some reason, every copy of season 1, episode 1 is just like filled with gremlins, and it's the most important episode because it's how they fucking get there. So I will have another look. I will try and find it because one was either like out of sync or whatever. I don't know why. I mean, it was the same with Mary Tyler Moore Show. The first episode, all the other episodes were perfectly fine and up there, but episode 1, season 1, they're like, well, we'll make it difficult and see if they want to make it through the second one. Maybe it's like an allegiance test.
I might see if I can actually buy it. It can't be that expensive. Maybe I'll have a look.
If you just buy number 1, trust me, I've got all the links for 2 plus.
Yeah. But we'll talk about it next week. But I remember the Golden Girls when it was out, because it would be on at like 5 p.m. on Channel 4. And I just loved Blanche's accent.
Blanche Devereaux.
Blanche. And I watched, on Facebook, they got Facebook TV. They had this cut up episode where they discussed about down south, and she was celebrating the Southern flag, the Confederate flag, and there was Don Cheadle was in it actually, and they were having a chat about how he was finding it upsetting and all the rest of it. So, but like without all the other funny stuff, it's quite like somebody had just cut together all the difficult stuff. I was like, oh god. But I was like, oh my god, I seem to remember watching this at the time and not having a Scooby-Doo what was going on. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be really good. So Golden Girls for next week. Cool. And we have got, it was, good. Thanks, Ray. Yeah, it was really well done. You couldn't see the seams, but it could have done with some light bits of it. So who have we got? Who's our guest next week, Lucy?
Our next week is Ariel Sumer, who I've been, right, it's not stalking, is it? It's researching.
There's a phone line.
Who
researching?
I believe has been working at the railway whilst this pandemic is on, and it's just fascinating because I like anything to do with transport because of who I am. But she was saying about how someone actually fell between the gap.
Oh my god! Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and it's just like
so whether that passenger was okay, but
but it's just a case of there. As comedians, we are people as well, and we've got real jobs whilst the gigs aren't coming in, or whilst we're new and coming up till we can make money on it. But it's really important to be able to separate the fact that these are people going out and doing key worker jobs. I am overexcited. I just think she's going to be a whirlwind. So. Yes, I will make a point of putting some of her stuff on Kitchen Sink Facebook. A couple of links for us all to watch before the show. But yeah, I can't wait. It's very exciting.
Yeah, it's gonna be so cool. Right, so I think that's it for this week. Thanks to everybody that watched and everyone that took part. So thank you so much. And get watching the Golden Girls ready for next week, guys.
But Sarah, I just want to say one thing to you. Thank you for being a friend.
Thank you for being a friend. Is that because we've been down the road and back again?
My heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant.
No. We need a theme tune for our TV show.
One of us said they were going to make a theme tune. One of us didn't.
God. I will do it. We'll do it together. Correct.
Because playing the guitar on online formats during comedy works so well.
Bye, everyone.
Right, goodbye to all our Twitch viewers, our Facebook watchers, our Periscope watchers, our YouTube watchers, and don't forget, Spotify, we love you. Mwah.
And don't forget, we have a coffee. Feel free to
buy us a cuppa.
Pepples. And come and like us on Twitch. Anyway, thanks very much. This is why we did the theme tune to come in now and go.
Yeah, exactly. La, la, la. Follow us on Twitch. Do. Don't be a bitch. No, that doesn't.
No, right. What? Hey, what? What's that?
Bye, everyone.